Welcome to the FARcast here at Chadron State College. I'm Daniel Binkard with my co-host Alex Helmbrecht, and we're here talking today to our athletic director, Joel Smith. And Joel, good to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And it's your first time in the studio, too,
It
so
is.
you're getting to see everything.
Yes. Very nice place.
Well, I appreciate that.
Some flowers around here.
I've got an air freshener going.
No,
It
I
gets a
didn't know.
little
I didn't ask
musty
about that.
basement smell.
I could tell when I came in that there was an air freshener.
Yeah.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, I can smell it now, too.
Yeah, it's a little more pleasant.
Fair enough.
Well, we got a few questions for you,
Sure.
Joel. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to believe you've been the athletic director here since 2013. It feels kind of like it's only yesterday and kind of like it's been 10 years now or something.
Right.
But so obviously the fans here are likely familiar with you. They know your face, and they know you're the guy to blame in the end.
I take the buck, yes.
Well, what would you say are some of the biggest accomplishments that the athletic department has experienced in the last decade?
Wow. That one could go on for a long time. I mean, we had a lot of things that we needed to work on when we got here. And we did all that along with building all the buildings that we built and trying to maintain the success that the previous years of not only Chadron State football, but some of the other sports too, that long tradition of things. We had to maintain that while we were still trying to do change some things the way that I wanted to see them be organized, and then also try to build the buildings. And so it was fun, and it was also quick. I don't think of it in terms of how long I've been here, right? But when you put the date down there, you start thinking about it, you go. Now, one of the reasons for that too is that I didn't just show up here in 2013, right?
Right.
I knew about the place, and when I was the commissioner, I really, really liked Chadron. It was one of my favorite places to come visit. And it had a lot to do with the people. I liked Brad, I liked Alex, I liked Don. I mean, those people that I met when I was here really enjoyed it, and I liked the small town. So it was always a place that I had some, a little fondness for. And when I got the opportunity to come up here, then it was kind of an easy transition from that standpoint. So,
Yeah, Daniel has experience with this as well. But looking back to 2013, the best press box was in the softball field.
That was about the newest, wasn't it?
And there wasn't a track. There wasn't the Chicoine Center.
Nope.
And there certainly wasn't the revamped Elliott Field and BB Stadium. And so, I mean, when you say that, it doesn't sound like much, but it is actually a lot.
We've transformed
of
this side of campus.
When you think about how many projects were all included in all of that stuff, it kind of boggles your mind a little bit to think back and think, gosh, we got all that done. When I tell people outside of here that we did this and we did this and we did that, it sounds like I'm some kind of superstar. Not me. I didn't do it. But we were able to accomplish that with all the help of everybody around. And that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
It really is. And go from, I wouldn't say that Chadron was the worst facilities in the league, because there were other ones that were worse. But we just kind of leapfrogged everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, there isn't anybody who I think has as nice of facilities in all of their areas as we do. And we still need a little work. I mean, softball could use a little bit more. It's a little tired now too, right? We need to get the track finished so that we can actually use it. That would be kind of cool. But other than that, though, who else has as nice of facilities as we do? And plus, we got to build off of the ones we already had. Like the indoor track was always like kind of a gym in the RMAC, because it was the only one for a long time.
Yeah.
Kearney's in ours. And then when Kearney left the league, then it was for a little while. Mm-hmm. I don't consider Colorado School of Mines' indoor facility really an indoor track, because it was only 3 lanes and all that other stuff. But
that does seem a little limiting. What do we have left on the outdoor track to finish up?
So there's some fencing that are being bid out right now, and then the throws areas. Okay, so we're going to actually kind of keep the area where we have now, but we have to put a $30,000 cage up there so that we can host stuff, and that all flat area all has to be poured in concrete and made out so that we can make it a legitimate throw area. And then we'll probably do the shot put area closer to the track, kind of off into where those trees are to the east, I guess, of the track. And that way we'll have a nice hopefully two shot areas, and that we can go in there and make that into a little nicer area. And then we'll be ready to go.
Well, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be fantastic.
Then we'll have track meets in the spring. with fun weather.
Yeah, barring inclement weather, of course.
Yeah.
Spring sports are always kind of a mixed cocktail. When it
Yeah,
comes
well,
to
and I told
Chadron.
Riley, I said, how many of our numbers are actually going to count, because they're either going to be wind obstructed or wind aided up there. So, but hopefully we'll get nice calm days, and then we'll get all the good ones in when we need to.
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
We mentioned the renovated or newly constructed facilities, and I'm still always blown away every time I'm in the Chacoin Center. I'm on that lower level, kind of over there by the women's locker rooms for volleyball and basketball. And you see that door that leads into Armstrong, and you think to yourself, I used to park here.
That's right. That's right.
And now it's a gym floor.
Right.
There was so much work that was put into that. It looks, pretty flawless now, but there's a lot of dirt work that was.
Oh yeah, to change how the levels and make it all fit up. Yeah, that was a big deal. And it was, one of the things that we don't talk enough about was the fact that we were able to keep the old buildings, because we use them so much. So some people might have thought, well, if you're spend all that money building the building, you should tear down the old one. No, we use Armstrong just as much, if not more, than we used to. I mean, it's amazing, except for we don't do crowd things anymore, right? But the practice schedules, the people outside who need the use of a bigger building, the ones that used to exist in town have kind of disappeared for the most part. And so now they want to come and use our building. And so, it's gotten to kind of grow as a life of its own, that whole complex. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Didn't we even have some classes in the Armstrong gym during the pandemic last
year?
Well,
we've had classes for a while. We actually have a theater class that goes on in Armstrong.
Okay.
And they practice fencing.
Good. I didn't know they were over there.
And they've been over there for years because they needed the extra space. But yes, we had other ones, Daniel, and we have talked about maybe trying to do some more of the community stuff that goes on in the PAC, trying to move a few things over there, mainly because of the air conditioning. Because Armstrong is air conditioned, so you could do some things like in the summer for activities type of stuff, and yoga classes or whatever that we could do over there, where they could spread out and have a lot more. And I'm fine with that, as long as it doesn't impact our practice schedules. So
That's great.
Yeah.
I always like it when those facilities get used.
yes, well, that's why you build them.
Yep.
To use them. I mean, it runs you a little ragged sometimes when you do feel guilty if we go through a week and we don't have something going on in the building. I feel guilty because we've spent a lot of money, and I have a lot of pride in those buildings, and it's good to see that we get to use them a lot.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So Joel, you mentioned that you were the commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Excuse me, and that was your job before you came here. What was that like?
What was your job before they came? Okay. It was an interesting job. It was, Leo DeRocher said one time I had to keep the 5 guys who hated me away from the 10 who hadn't made their decision yet, right? And so...
probably good advice
for
any
for anything. But in that case, you work for... And back then we had 14 schools in the league. We have 15 now. But you work for 14 different presidents. And none of them have your best interests necessarily at mind. They have their institution's best interest, which they should. So, but as the commissioner, you're the arbiter of all of the conflict between all those schools, and so that you're eventually it's got a shelf life, I think. And so, I did it for 12 years, which was with the exception of the people who did it from like the early 70s until 90s. I was the second longest tenured commissioner in the whole 14 years of the RMAC. And so I must have done a few things pretty good about that. But at the same time, you eventually have to tell everybody no sometimes, and you get to a point where it becomes kind of a battle. That was problem number one. Bigger problem, though, was we worked in an office with 4 people in the middle of Colorado Springs, nice town and all that, but you just worked in an office, and that's what you did every day. You went in, the same 3 people were in the office all the time. You didn't get to have the interactions that you have on campuses and the communications and the coming to the studio, which, I didn't get it. I guess I did because we did a television show, but I missed campus life, and that's where I had originally came from before I did that. And so that part was sticking in my head when I got the opportunity to come here. And I wasn't necessarily looking to do something, but when that opportunity came, that just became one of the things that I thought was really exciting, was to be able to get back on campus, integrate with a lot of people, root for one team instead of, I told people I won the RMAC championship 12 years in a row in every sport.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, which I did.
Yeah,
I don't have any rings, unfortunately, but I did get to do that. So that part was cool. But you're always one step removed from it because you have to engage with with the ones who didn't win it, and all that other stuff. So trying to balance all those things was a really interesting challenge. But like I said, it had a shelf life. So
yeah, and I always thought you did a really nice job balancing that, and the rest of the crew that you had back in the office, particularly the ones I worked with the most were Sarah Meyer and Eric Danner when I was the SID. But I mean, there was it's not the most glamorous aspect of athletic administration. You're scheduling officials, which you need officials, but it's not the most appealing thing in the world. Or you're dealing with schedules, which is a bunch of spreadsheets. So it's a lot of logistics.
Yeah, it's nuts and bolts, and it's and then it's arbitration, and the arbitration is the really challenging. Hard part, but it's also the one that you need to have the most talent for, because I've got to be able to get all of these schools to actually confab together with differing states, differing deals, private, public, big schools like Metro, which was 17,000 back then when they were enrolled. I think they're more than that now. Small schools like Colorado Christian that was 300 kids, right? And try to get all those people to figure out a way to get along with each other, and create something positive out of it. It's kind of it's got some drudgery, and then it has these moments of wildfire, I guess. So yeah, interesting job. Glad I'm doing what I'm doing now.
All right. Well, let's go back a little bit further in time. So you've kind of been involved with the RMAC in one shape or another for even longer than that.
Yes.
So what did you do? You worked at Fort Lewis and Metro State prior to the RMAC?
Yeah, I'll start with how I got my career going. So I went to school at Colorado State University. I was getting a teaching education degree, and I wanted to get a degree in history. And I thought I was going to be a history teacher. And while I was there, I got hooked up with the housing department. And they had a whole crew of students. And we used to move tables and and we had a lot of fun. So there were a lot of people there. And there were about 6 of us that we all worked together. And for about 4 years, it got to be where that job was more important than getting our degree. Okay. And so they kept giving us little bumps of raises, and pretty soon they realized they were paying us too much money when they could go bring in some new set of freshmen and get us all out of there. So 4 years, I was almost done. I needed to do my student teaching and then some education classes. So I decided I'll go back to Metro, where it would be cheaper and I could live with my folks who actually lived in the area and all this other stuff. So, but I get down there and I don't have a job and I'm bored. And so for about 2 weeks, I'm going, well, I got to find something to do. And I'd always done some things in sports as far as coaching, and I was a football and a basketball official for a long time. And the friend of mine said that they were looking for some help to sell tickets for the basketball games at Metro. And at that time, Metro played in the old Denver Auditorium Arena, which was downtown Denver. It's now the Buell Theater. Okay. And so they ran their events in this 5,000-seat arena that I remember as a kid going there to see Denver Nuggets games or Rockets games when they were the Rockets. And so it was kind of cool. Okay. Well, that's how I started out. I was lucky enough that the athletic director there was the baseball coach, and he wanted to be a baseball coach, but he wanted to be paid like an athletic director. And so when I got there, I was like a godsend to him, because I'd do anything just to try to get into, and I really thought it was fascinating. And so I started taking on bus scheduling and fundraising and compliance. And at some point or other, I did pretty much every job you could do in that field. And I took that off of his plate so he could go coach baseball. So I worked there for 11 years. He called me. I also did coach a little baseball with him for a while. And he called me in one day and he says, well, what do you want to do with your career? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, he goes, well, here's the options I got for you. He says, number one, I could pay you $1,000 a year, which is what I was getting paid then, and to do all that stuff I was doing. And he says, I pay $1,000 a year and you could help me coach baseball. I'd bring you on. You can be one of the guys that hits fungo and whatever. He says, or how about if I hire you to be the assistant AD, I'll pay you $17,000 a year and you'll get benefits and everything.
There we go.
Well, that's a bit of a no-brainer.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd like to say I was a real smart guy, but no, most people would make the right decision, right? So I took the job. That's how I got in the business. Okay, well, then I didn't have a master's degree. I was doing that. I had a new family, all this other stuff. And I could realize that if I wanted to go anything in this business, I needed my master's degree. So went back to Regis. I got a master's degree in management. Actually, it was specifically about quality management. So back in that time, there was a huge movement in industries about how to do team building and 360 evaluations and there's a whole plethora of writings about that. I don't know whatever happened to all that stuff, but it was a big deal back then. So trying to be inclusive about, I guess it's the forebearer of inclusion maybe. So, but it was, that's what I got my master's degree in. And the trouble is trying to apply that to athletics is kind of weird because athletics is like a military structure, right? And so that's the battle I've fought ever since then is how do you find ways to include people in decision-making processes so that they can actually have a better product in the end. So anyway, I went back and got my master's degree at night. I had 2 kids, 1 car. We ended up buying a second car because that was the only way I could go back and forth all the time. And then when I finally finished that, sure enough, a couple jobs came open and I got to go to Fort Lewis. So I got hired as the athletic director at Fort Lewis.
Which is not a picturesque town at all.
Yeah, it was a pretty good fall for your first gig, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was 37 years old. And I knew some people there. That was part of how I got the opportunity. Been a crazy story. That was a crazy story anyway. But
now, were they still the Raiders at that time?
No,
or they moved to the Skyhawks?
They had made the transition to the Skyhawks. Okay. They had gone through a couple of ADs. And then and a bunch I guess they'd gone through 4 football coaches, like all in the same year.
Wow.
Because guys kept leaving and getting jobs. It was not a good football job. And I came there. Actually, how it started was I had applied the previous November. And I went to the NSA convention in January and I saw the vice president who I knew really well. And he goes, I got some good news and bad news. I go, okay, what's that? He says, well, there are you're still in the hunt for the job. He says, no. He said, the bad news is that you're not in the hunt for the job anymore. We had a committee of 20 people and they kicked you out the first round. And I go, well, what's the good news? Then he says, well, I got you back in the hunt. And I go, okay. Well, then I didn't hear anything. So now March comes along, middle of March, right before the basketball tournaments start. And they announced that they're going to hire this gal from Wisconsin to take the job. So I'm heartbroken a little bit. I run into him at a basketball tournament in Denver, the vice president, and he goes, whatever. He had all his excuses about why I didn't have him. I go, okay, fine, it's cool. And then my wife's brother was going to school at Fort Lewis, and we went down there for his graduation. And the whole weekend I was just moping around because I kept going, wow, what a cool place. I'd love to live here. I like to be outdoors. I like to do all this stuff. And sat in the gym and I saw all these people there and I go, wow, I could do so much with this. It was all cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I was depressed the whole time. Anyway, come about June, there's an announcement in the paper that the gal does not come. So she strung them out for about 3 months. She doesn't take the job. So now the job's open again. So he contacts me and the vice president contacts me again. He says, yeah, we want to consider you for the job. So I go down and I interview. This was early August. And then they say, well, we got a couple more interviews to do. And I go, that's kind of weird. You asked me to come down there and do all this, and then you got 2 more interviews. And I don't know whether I was the third person to get whatever. I got the job. I got the job 2 weeks. Football had already started practice, and 2 weeks before the first home football game. That's when I got the job.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, quite a time to come into it.
So I took a U-Haul van. I had 2 kids. and we loaded everything up in the van, drove all the way to Durango, and my in-laws had a rental there in Durango. I guess it's because Kathy's brother was living in it before, so we moved into it first. And we drove all the time. We got all the way down there. The one thing that was really important to me was I didn't want to lose all my tropical fish because I had this 55-gallon fish tank. So we got out of the truck about 3 a.m, and I'm doing everything I can to get that tank running, so it's all good, right? My in-laws had put new carpet in this apartment, all this other stuff. So I get in there, I get it all set up, and then we go to bed. And I get up in the morning, and all the seams had broken, and they're like fish were gone. There's fishy water everywhere. That was how we got to start out. So, and then I had to turn around and drive back to Colorado Springs to go to an RMAC meeting.
Of course.
So it started out pretty crazy. Anyway. Yeah. Long and short of it, I had 7 years there at college. I had Fort Lewis, and I really enjoyed it a lot. That was fun. It was weird to be young and be in that position, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, probably learned a lot from it, I would imagine.
I broke 2 teeth grinding my teeth the first year I was there.
Oh, wow.
Just stressful. It's stressful. But I haven't broken any teeth lately, so that's
good. You learned from it. Then.
Some of them don't exist anymore. But
I'm not sure how familiar our listeners are, but the football field in Durango on Fort Lewis's campus is one of the best that I've ever been to. It's practically on the side of the mountain.
Yes, it's beautiful there.
And I mean, it's just fantastic there. I always love visiting. Hopefully their press box has been renovated. Oh, it hasn't? Oh,
no.
It wasn't. That wasn't among the prettiest RMAC facilities, but it's a great place to watch a game.
The bleachers weren't really that good either. They still have the same challenges. I haven't been down there in a while, but they haven't really done much with the football stadium. It is a spectacular place to sit and watch a football game, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the press box is horrible.
Yeah, that happens.
Yep. There's soccer was God there for a long time. Most of the time that I was there, soccer was God. So most of the resources went into building a new soccer facility, and they have a very nice soccer facility in there. So.
So, Joel, you kind of have alluded to it a little bit, but how much has your job changed? I mean, you've basically worked in athletics your entire professional career. I've had obviously plenty of conversations with you, but I've never really asked you how much has changed. I'm sure you've seen a ton.
So when I was working at Metro as a student, we had one computer, a DOS computer, for the whole department. It came when I was there, and it was shipped in a box with our OA's name on it. So they gave the first sets of computers that went out everywhere, they gave them to OA's. Not professional people didn't have computers. Our SID did everything with whiteout and typewriter. After every game. Okay. So he would be sitting on the bus he had a pencil and some whiteout, and he would go there and update all of the cumulative stats. Then when he'd get back that night, he would sit there and retype it all up so he'd have it for the next day. And then he'd just do the same thing. It lasted for 24 hours till the next basketball game or something like that. So yes, that was totally bizarre. Looking back on it now, that was the state of the art, right? Yeah. The thing that's really, in my opinion, has changed the business a lot is social media. There was a time when, first of all, at Division IIs, you didn't get much media to begin with, but you had to work hard to just get what you could. But you knew the game plan, right? So I knew I could go to the local paper, and so I go to the Chadron Record, and if I send good press releases to them all the time, they're going to run them. Might get lucky and get something down in Scotts Bluff. Once in a while, if we have a really great player like Danny Woodhead, then you start seeing the other pieces of. But they were, you could pick and choose what was going to happen. There were going to be some scouts through here. Somebody might want to do a feature story on Danny, whatever, right? You kind of knew the channels that it was going on. Nowadays, people get their information from so many different places, and you have to be on top of it. And so, is it Twitter? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? What vehicle works the best? How often? And how much of that buzz actually just dies in the sphere because people can't keep up with it. Yeah. I can't keep up with Now I'm slow, but even young, you know, I read an article the other day where they said that kids are on their phones 6.5 hours a day. And even at that kind of pace, I don't know how you keep up with it. How do you keep up with all of that stuff, right?
Yeah,
if I go on my Twitter thing right now and I sit there just if I'm sitting and waiting for a meeting, I was doing it outside before I came in. I go on the Twitter thing and I roll and I roll and I scroll and I try to just scan I'm not reading every one thing. I'm just scanning to see what's on there, right? And most of my Twitter stuff is all athletic stuff, so I learned something from it. But I might have killed 15 minutes just doing that right there, just there. And nothing, I wasn't anything productive. Maybe I learned something, and that is the way people's lives are more structured now. So what happens is I think they start disconnecting with the things that we think are important. So, I mean, having school pride, coming to events, engaging with other people, right? That is one of the real strong suits of college athletics, okay? And those impressions that are made when you're an undergraduate go on forever. I can talk to people who are in the business or, you know, just in education now, even if they're faculty members or whatever, that they tend to have that as some of their memories. Oh, I was at Georgia and I did the mall crawl with all of the co-eds when they did that thing, you know, before the football game. It's like a rite of passage for people. And we're losing that a lot.
Yeah.
There's so much for people to do that is very, very hard, and you can't penetrate it. It's really hard to penetrate. You almost have to go back to what the old days, which was word of mouth. I mean, I almost have to say, Daniel, would you come to this thing that we're having today? I really would like to see you be there, okay? Now, you may have seen that it's been you've seen whatever it is we're advertising 500 times, but when people have to make decisions about the other things that are available in their lives, it just becomes fragmented, right? Yeah. And so to me, social media has changed the game.
Yeah. I can remember when I started in 2007, we I think probably with your help, Daniel, we put photo galleries on the athletic website, which was then still part of .edu.
About that. Yeah.
And I can remember the players and the parents like, wow, this is great, looking at photos. Yeah. And now if you don't have photos of student athletes up, you're getting phone calls from parents.
Yeah, why didn't that happen?
Interesting how fast it changed. I think back to the Woodhead days when I was sending photos off to the Star Herald and Omaha and Rapid City papers and like that felt like the cutting edge as far as social media.
Didn't even consider anything else about it.
Yeah.
But then now, I mean, you'd have to make sure you're checking all those boxes.
Yeah,
right.
It's definitely become more of a job, that's for sure.
And you got, you know, it's so much more political now, not necessarily an athletics political per se, but it's the information is so deep. And what people want now is really what they've always wanted, you know, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So they want bad news. They want to talk about bad news. They want to be about bad news. And so if there's something that happened at the football game, what could it be? The music was too loud. Before, the person who felt that way didn't really have a vehicle to say anything about it, right? But now they have a vehicle.
Amplify it.
Right? So now we can amplify it. And then I can string 3 or 4 people together who thought that the music was too loud too. Now they can hear the music all the way in South Dakota, okay? Now it's become a bigger problem than it ever was before because we didn't learn some tolerance in some particular reason or whatever. Obviously, you turn the music down. That's an obvious question. But I'm just using that as an example about how things get so exponential now because of this thing, because people have all this information they think they have. And, you know, we see it in the politics now it is a little disappointing. And I did not major in journalism, but I was around it all my life. And I'm real disappointed that in our world today, we don't have some true journalists who want to see both sides of the story.
Yeah, some of that in-depth investigative.
Yeah. Well, just to get to the root of something, right? And not come in with a predisposition about it. That's to me is really disappointing. And I don't care which way the story ends up. Did you see Gaslight, the movie?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Gee, I'm probably dating myself. It's probably 10 years ago. So Gaslight is the story of the Boston priest scandal. where they started finding out that they had all these priests that were molesting kids. Okay, and there was a investigative group at the Boston Herald that was called the Gaslight Team, and that was what they were supposed to go in and put something to this, and they figured this thing all out. And the movie's phenomenal for the only in how it salvages what investigative reporting used to be. Okay, it made me feel good. I mean, the movie doesn't make you feel good because it's a really sad topic, right? But the effort and the things that they did and how they went about it, and there were Catholics that were reporters, so they had this whole struggle inside themselves about how do we do this when it's against the church that I'm involved with. So, to me, we don't have that much anymore. Now everybody's got to raise a flag, and they're going to find out some way to make the flag look like it's the way that my flag should be, and not about what's going on. I mean, what's the real going on? And that's disappointing. And and we run into a little bit with athletics. I mean, I feel bad for Scott Frost. I mean, whether he's ever going to be good or not at Nebraska, who knows? But how could he ever have a chance? Mm-hmm. How could he even have a chance? Somebody asked this question to me, and I think it's a great question. Is there anyone else in the United States or other places unknown who could have a chance to be more successful than him? Is there? I mean, I don't know if there is. Okay,
they could pay me $5 million and I'd find out.
Yeah, sure, and get the money would be a good thing, right? But he has all the pedigree. He understands the old world. He was successful in the new world, right? He was at Central Florida and winning at a program that didn't have nearly the resources that Nebraska has. Now, so who knows? I mean, I don't have the answer to the key to that piece, but that's the world we're in right now, right? So he won't even have time. He needs to have. I did say, I don't know if it was Herb Street or one of those guys, Talking Heads, was talking about that. He says you got to give the guy 10 years to try to get that to that kind of thing, and I agree with him. But nobody has that kind of time. I mean, we get that now.
Yeah, I think that you raise a good point, and we talk a little bit about it in college relations from time to time, that there's a difference between criticizing and being critical. If you're being critical, you're providing feedback, you're trying to work toward a common goal, you're collaborating. If you're criticizing, anyone can do that. I could tell Daniel, black's a terrible color on you. Why are you wearing that? It's just based on my own subjective opinion. Right. And that requires no research at all.
And it's easier, right?
Exactly.
So much easier to do that. And that's where we're at now with this thing and with the phone. Now they can get on there and you can have whatever opinion that you want to have about anything, okay? And it doesn't matter whether it's right, wrong, or has any basis in fact at all, okay? It's just there. It's just out there. Yeah. And then all it takes is somebody to cling on to it, okay? And then all of a sudden it becomes something bigger than it really should be. And we've lost a lot of tolerance, in my opinion. And I think that's bad. And I also think we've missed. I think we missed some of the magic. And we hear this a lot from our deal because I know that the time that Danny was here was magical. Okay, there's no way to describe. I mean, I was here. I was at events. I stood like 6 deep in the end zone over there when Joe flipped into the end zone. Okay, that's where I was. All right, I saw the magic. It was magical. Yeah. And that magic was created when they didn't have hardly anything. They had a terrible weight room, no facilities, all of those things that we've got now that are really cool, right? Didn't have any of that, but there was a magic, and there was something in that, and that energy that those people at that time put to that thing was phenomenal. Trying to find a way to create that, especially in this world, is so much more difficult because back then everybody got on the bus, right? Now we've got a lot of people who think, well, I don't think that bus is as clean as I want it to be, or I don't, When then, of course, you throw COVID stuff in, right? Then it makes it even worse, right? So we'll get to the point where we isolate ourselves so much. And in athletics, and especially in collegiate athletics, the biggest part of it, the whole success that it has, is bringing people together. Yeah. People, faculty members in the English department sitting at the football game with faculty members in the business department. They may not ever cross paths anywhere else, but they'll come to the games and have a good time. That's what it's supposed to be about. Yeah. And now people are scared to come to games. They're scared they're going to get sick or whatever else is happening. Or They've got so many other options, and we do it to ourselves. Daniel, this is no criticism of you, but we do television production. When we were talking about the beginning of the no one ever thought about us ever being in television production in Division II, okay? Let alone the fact that we do as much stuff as we do, right? It just wasn't existing. We were jacked up when I was at the RMAC and they got the basketball tournament on one of the cable networks, whatever it was, Altitude, I believe it was at the time. And that was like a unbelievable thing, right? And that was the only television that the RMAC, the whole conference, got the whole year was the basketball tournament on a weekend. Okay, now every school in the conference does all their stuff. If you want to see something, you don't have to leave your seat. Yeah, right.
And it's free.
Yeah, I mean, there for a while, I think we charged for it, but it wasn't gangbusters.
Yeah.
And so now you're right, it's free, and so it's we've made decisions so much easier for people as far as. I got to get in the car. I got to get the kids. I got to get tickets. I got to sit there for a little while. It's noisy in there. And you start running those scenarios in your mind, and now we're not building that family that I think we used to have.
It's an interesting balance. I think nothing can really replace that game day experience. And I think if what I can provide for the viewers that just can't make it, they're too far away and there are other commitments, then that's fantastic. But I definitely would encourage people, if you can make it to the game in person, it's worth coming.
And it makes the broadcast better, right?
Yeah.
And so we talk about it all the time about how do we get better shots or where do we put camera angles so we can make it look like it's more entertaining, more fun and activities. And that's what you want. So you want that happy mix. We're kind of blessed in Chadron, okay, because people are looking for things to do, especially in the winter time. So our attendance is typically in the upper half of the league, whether we're good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah. For volleyball and for basketballs, people come out. That's great. Yeah. I mean, I want to pack the place, and that'll probably come when we're doing really well and winning and building those things. But I think that value is still a very high value in our community. But at the same time, there are all these things that peel it all. I was laughing at myself because I was sitting at the scores table a year ago watching the football game when we had a volleyball game, okay? I go, wow, that's kind of weird that you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Never used to be able to do that. But you could listen to it on the radio.
Yeah, I had a little bit of it. Well, Joel, what can we look forward to? We've got our new season starting up. We've got our first home football game this Saturday. Yep. So in terms of what are some of the really cool things people can share on their social media in this coming season?
Yeah, well, coming out of the world of COVID, right?
Right,
so we
that
had
too.
What was in essence a lost season last year. We did play, we did do some things, but it was so lost in all of everything that was happening. And all of the kids got their eligibility back, so they're all the same class and everything. But they do have a year of experience and stuff. And so to me, I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
We have some amazing athletes, and we have throughout history, in my opinion. And so to me, that's the thing that's the most exciting no matter what we do. So it's the kids that we can Nashawn when he's jumping or, any of the other jumpers that we've had. We got people here who are national caliber people.
Yeah, we do.
We have we have a football team that's filled full of seniors this year that I hope can kind of bounce back from last week a little bit, but they will, and because that's a good group and that's a good coaching staff that's working with them. I'm very excited about our men's basketball program. I'm excited about our women's basketball program. Janet did a really good job this year going out and trying to get some kids that I think are bought into what she wants to try to get done. That's good. Volleyball. I just came back I was in Pueblo last week watching the volleyball team, and we played in a tournament where we very easily could have won all 4 of the games that we played, and we were competitive in every one of them. So that's exciting to me to see how that goes. It's exciting to me to see how the athletes respond to being back to some measure of normal. It's not normal yet, but at least it's some measure of normal, right?
Yeah. Getting closer.
Mm-hmm. And so let's see what that happens. To me, what would make it even better is just the more folks come out and make that atmosphere around all that into a much better thing. And we've seen it. A little bit. I think this will be our first test this weekend when we have people coming out for something that when school's in and all that other stuff. But, hopefully we'll have good crowds this year and people will be coming out and having a good time and being excited about what's going on.
Well, I'm really curious to see, and I don't think we have any home meets scheduled this year, but since we've got women's wrestling that's pretty cool.
That is a new cool thing. And we are trying to schedule a women's wrestling home meet if we can. So we haven't quite got that figured out yet. But that adding that sport is, I think, is going to create a lot of energy. I think people are going to be very surprised about what women's wrestling actually means.
Yeah, I'm curious just like that different style compared to men's. I'm really
It is. It's not. It's you can watch it and it'll all kind of look about the same, but there are definitely technical differences in the freestyle instead of the folk style that the men do, and. I think the energy level is high. There's a lot going on. It's kind of like watching the lower weights in the men's side with that kind of energy, but it's at every level with the women. It's really cool, I think. So some of the wrestling that I've seen, and Elijah Jeffrey, our new coach, has really got a lot of energy himself, and he's really working hard to try to build it. I think it's a program that'll grow really quickly, and I'm excited about that.
Does he have any women on the roster yet?
We have 5 women on campus that are wrestling right now. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And my hope is that we can probably pick up a few more, at the break, and a predominance of the schedule can be done in the spring. So that's what we're hoping for right now. This first year is going to be tough. We didn't get it, and it wasn't our fault necessarily. It was just the idea came up, and we had to go through the processes to make it happen. And it took until we could get through a board meeting to get that approved, and that was late. And then we were late. We moved along pretty well with the hiring process, but it just is difficult. Yeah. We knew that, and the first year was going to be hard. It will be, and it is set up to really grow, I think. So,
how many weight classes do they compete?
They have 10.
10. So just like men's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They have just like men's. They're small, obviously lower weights, but no, I think people will find that that's a really exciting thing. So
I'm really looking forward, and if the scheduling works out for it, where we've got one of our RMX school anyway, where we would have. Like a long day of it where we got men's and women's maybe alternating or however it would be balanced just to get that whole mix going.
And we have talked about that. So that the excitement of doing that would be a lot of fun. And, wrestling matches typically, even the men's wrestling matches are typically pretty quick. They don't take a ton of time.
You never know how fast it could go.
No, it can go longer too. Guys going and going and going. But to add to have a double header in that sense would really be kind of cool. And we are looking to try to do that.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Joel, could you explain the name, image, and likeness policy the NCAA has adapted?
So how many shows do I have? I get to do a bunch?
Well, maybe limit yourself. The elevator speech.
Yeah.
Daniel and I are riding with you to the top of high rise. Yeah. We're going to the penthouse. So you have 11 floors. What does that mean for CSC? What does it mean for student athletes?
So if it was the elevator speech, it would be, "This is the sure sign of the apocalypse." How's that? Okay.
Well, then we better get off the elevator.
Yeah, you want to get off you go down the stairs. Do not use the elevator. And this is coming a little bit from an old school dude. So, to me, the whole idea of a amateur collegiate athlete, was somebody who did this for the love of the game, for the opportunity to become educated and go on with their life and be fruitful citizens. That was what I worked all 38 years of the business to do that. I guess in a way it sort of is a microcosm of the social media stuff we talked about, or the extra television or whatever. Opportunity, the one thing that you could never have factored in was what opportunity was that out there. I mean, if I was a college student and I had an opportunity to sit down at my computer and make a little website, and all of a sudden I start getting 1.5 million hits, and YouTube's willing to give me X for whatever it is that my product is, why would I not do that? I mean, I guess I could sit and get drunk, but being productive, my goodness, what a great opportunity. Okay, so I started out kind of negative about this, but the reality is it's a new frontier. Yeah. And it's not one that has a lot of guidance to it. I think the NCAA did a disservice, and I say that I have to clarify NCAA. I'm saying this about me because I'm a member of the NCAA. Our institution's a member of the institution of that, and all the institutions are it's a member organization. People like to personify it like it's some god up there that makes all these cataclysmic decisions that nobody likes. But it's us. It's how we decide how we're going to play with each other. And we did not get on top of this. And I actually served on the Division II Name, Image, and Likeness Committee. And although I thought we made some really good headway, they ran into a lot of legal issues, and so they couldn't implement the things that we wanted to do. And so consequently, what happened, again, I'm going to give you the 3-show speech here really quick, but states started passing legislation about allowing kids to make money, okay, including the state of Nebraska. We have one on the books right now. It comes into effect in 2023, okay? And so the NCAA was facing this huge deadline, and they didn't want to make they were hoping that there'd be a national, something out of the national government that would kind of solve this problem, and it didn't happen. So now it's all at each state level. We're trying to deal with the issue at the state level, and so what the NCAA did was basically threw up their hands and says, "Hey, we don't care if the kids want to try to make money. Great, let them have fun." So that, in the nutshell, is what it is. We went from being an amateur organization to now allowing kids to pretty much do whatever they want to do. Now,
within reason.
You still can't. I still can't have a booster go out and say, if you'll come here, I'll give you $5 million to play at Chadron State College. That's not legal.
Yeah.
Okay. But people find ways around stuff. So the University of Miami, their alums, and this is an ill-hearted. It was just a way to help their program. Some alums with good businesses come back and the alum makes the pledge. I will pay every football player on the University of Miami $6,000 a year. And I'm going to ask all these other donors and alums who have businesses to do the same. So it wouldn't take them long. They get what? I don't know. They can't do the math, but they get 10 more institutions to do it. That's $60,000 a kid. Wish I had $60,000 when I was going to college, right?
Yeah.
That's just to be a part of. Now, the kids, on the other hand, have to say, hey, I like drinking beer at this bar, or whatever. And they can't, that's another thing. They can't get into the drug business. They can't be doing stuff like that, or illicit situations. They can't do any of that stuff. But for the kid and we had one here. We had a kid here who left our program because they were paying him $250,000 to live in a house in LA and develop gameware because he was a gamer. I mean, how could you say no to that? I mean, you want a kid to have an education, but he can always get an education.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, can't fault him.
Yeah, if they've got that, maybe he doesn't need the education. Who knows? But right. If you have a modeling career and you want to be able to, do photo shoots and make money from it, big deal. It doesn't really matter. So. Now, the devil is obviously in the details, and that's why I was a little apocalyptic before, because I think that it still changes the nature of what we're doing. And the kids are going to here's the scenario that I ran with a lot of people. Okay, if I'm the star quarterback, I'm a senior quarterback, and the local dealership in town decides to give me a car and has me do a bunch of shoots for the dealership, saying, come and buy a car from us. And I'm, socially, I get, I got a little nicer car to drive around in. I got a little money in my pocket that I can go spend when I go out to the bars with everybody. And my linemen got what? Nothing. Because they aren't. It's that the market conditions are now driving it instead of some of the fairness that we try to get through with stuff, right? So in the NCAA world, we have scholarship monies, and kids get different scholarship monies, but it's never more than the cost of attendance, right? But what happens when this star quarterback, who happens to be a little lippy, right? He's got to go back to pass. And somebody's got to block for him, okay? And so all of a sudden the star quarterback becomes buried back there, and then the booster doesn't like that very much, and then that all goes away. And so what did we learn from that experience? Nothing really very positive in my mind, and it causes dissension amongst the team. And you could get to that.
Yeah.
Would we ever see it here? Doubtful.
Right.
I mean, what we're going to see is Runza is going to get, and then this did happen, by the way. Runza, if you'll give you $300 if you'll go online and say, I love Runzas. And you're an athlete in Nebraska, the first 100 athletes who contacted them, they're getting $300 for saying that. Okay. So, it would be nice if everybody had that opportunity because I like Runza too. But those are the kind of things that are going to come out of it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so, and who knows what else, because people have great imaginations, correct? And so now that they've got that openings in there, trying to figure out where, what things are going to, play out that aren't going to be positive, it's hard to say. They could. It has the potential of being some bad things. But for right now, if a kid can make some extra money going to college, it helps them out. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Joel, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to know a little bit about your interests outside of work. And I understand you're a musician, among other things.
I do.
Talk about that.
There are two things that I really like to do. I am a musician. I've been playing the guitar since I was 10.
Yeah.
My father was a musician. He played the steel guitar in a band in Pueblo. And so I've been around music all my life. And we used to we honestly got to do some of those things you hear about in the history stuff about sitting around somebody's house with everybody picking and grinning. I grew up like that. So I watched people, 2 or 3 generations of people doing that. The unfortunate thing is I don't get to do that anymore. So, but going through college, that was, it helped have beer money and that kind of thing. And I had a long-standing gig at the Royal Gorge in Canyon City, Colorado. I played there 3 weekends a year with a buddy of mine. We used to go play underneath a gazebo. The gazebo's gone now. It burnt down in a fire, but we used to do that kind of gig. It was fun. It was a fun social thing, and it was something totally different than what I do with work. And so I've always liked that piece. I love the fly fish. To me, that's one of the greatest things in the world, and I don't get to do it enough anymore either. But that's one of the other kind of hobbies I guess I have when I can find time to do them. So,
Oh yeah, very good.
But I love music, and I'm a historian. So, Alex and I got into a conversation the other day about Nancy Griffith, and I guess my tastes in music are a little eclectic. So you can at any time hear me talking about Motown, or you can hear me talking about folk rock, or I was a big fan and still am, even more so maybe now than back then, a big fan of John Denver, and everybody kind of saw him as a sugar bubblegum pop kind of dude. But when you see the work that he did over the years and how he applied himself to all that stuff, it's pretty impressive what kind of guy he was too, as well as all the other stuff. So anyway, so I have my music interests. I'm not much of a reggae dude. That's the only one I haven't really caught on to.
John Denver has in my mind, the best Christmas album of all time, John Denver and the Muppets.
Yep, play it every Christmas.
So do we. Growing up, my mom would always put that on.
Yeah.
And so I just remember the 12 Days of Christmas, like you have like Miss Piggy singing on it and stuff.
Yeah.
So those are some jams.
I'm not sure that's the one John wants to be the most remembered for.
Well, that's fine.
That's okay. That's a good one, yeah. So yeah, I do get to do some of those things. I get to break out the guitar every once in a while. It's mostly just me now, so I just sit there and play by myself.
Well, I think we need to throw down the gauntlet, Daniel. That first women's wrestling match, we need Joel to shred the national anthem.
That's right.
That was another thing that I did in my career where I tried to mix metaphors. So I sang the anthem at Metro for years. I was famous for that, whatever famous means. I sang it at NCAA Division I basketball regional. I got to sing at Mile High Stadium one time. So I have done that before. I quit because I was also in charge of the concession stand at Metro. And right before I was supposed to go out and sing, I was in the concession stand just getting some stuff for the guys that were in there. And one of the syrup lines broke. And it was squirting syrup everywhere, okay?
That stuff's thick.
Oh my goodness. And so I ran up and I grabbed it and I got a screwdriver and I got the clamp back on, whatever. And so I have got syrup down my hands like this, my tie. And somebody walks by the concession and says, 2 minutes to get Anthem. So I don't got time to go to the bathroom to go clean up. So I go out and did the anthem with syrup dropping down there and just
What color was it?
It was that dark caramely color. So.
Okay, well, better that than like a bright red or something.
No, that you look like you'd been shot. Yeah. No, it wasn't that. But
they had to pry the microphone from him.
Yeah. The way that it was after that, I said, it's just not worth it doing all these things. It's not as glamorous, but I think I'd rather pay attention to the game event and stuff. So.
Well, we need to get you to sing the national anthem sometime.
I might do that. You know who else is really good at the national anthems? Caleb.
I'll get you two doing the duet style.
Caleb has a beautiful. One time we were sitting here at it was either volleyball game or basketball game, I can't remember. But the computer froze up on us and we couldn't get the anthem to come up. And he just grabbed the mic and went.
There you go.
I've heard him sing it. He's good.
And he can sing. I mean, seriously, he can sing. So.
Well, maybe we need to get a barbershop quartet or something like Daniel and I can shoot. You could probably do the doo-wop. All right. Well, if anyone's still listening, let's get into those quick hitting questions.
Did we just hit them down there, didn't we?
So we have 5 questions, Joel, just first thing that comes to the top of your head. And this is very fitting. What's the first concert you attended?
I had to think about that a little bit. The one that I remember going to was Linda Ronstadt, Pure Prairie League, and the Eagles, all in one place at Mile High Stadium.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And Linda Ronstadt was phenomenal. And I probably had a crush on her or something, I'm not sure. But she was phenomenal, just unbelievable. And that group of people was pretty good. I went to Red Rocks a lot. That was fun. Mm-hmm. So I saw a lot of concerts there. My favorite one, if I ever had one, was at the Strader Hotel in Durango, Leo Kottke, who no one's going to – who's he talking about? Leo Kottke, phenomenal guitar player. And we sat in the little theater at the Strader, and seriously, you could not hear a pin drop for an hour and a half. He was so mesmerizing the way that he played the guitar. And I'd seen him before, so I knew about him. And Chris Holland and I were there.
Oh, cool.
And it was a night that you just couldn't pay. It was just crystal. It's still a crystal memory in my mind. So
yeah, I love moments like that.
Yeah.
Favorite team, regardless of sport.
I am
aside from the Eagles.
Yeah,
right?
I've become a closet, although I used to be a flaming New York Mets fan. When in 1969, when they won the World Series, back then, those days, World Series were during the day, so the teacher would bring TVs in and watch this World Series on TV, right? And so it was the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Mets, and we had this little. I hate to use the example. He was a little fat guy, okay? And he was a Baltimore Orioles fan, and he was just obnoxious. And so I was going to be just as obnoxious and become a Mets fan. So I knew nothing about the Mets. And, of course, they win. So now I'm hooked. So I follow the Mets everywhere I go. All the time. This was growing up. I did all that stuff. And one time when I was coaching baseball, we played in the NAIA Regional Series down in Phoenix. And I was coaching, and we were finishing up a practice, and this guy was standing out there with a microphone and looked like you, Daniel. Yeah. And he goes, "Hey, I'd like to talk to your coach." I says, we're doing an interview for the local television station. And he goes, I said, "Well, he's got a couple more things to finish it up, and he can come over here now." I go, "Well, who should I tell him you are?" And he goes, "I'm Ron Swoboda." Now, Ron Swoboda was the right fielder for the Mets during the Miracle time. And he made a spectacular catch in the series, and so he was a big deal. And I knew who that was. So that ruined my next 2 hours because I just sat there and talked to Ron Swoboda. He told me all these stories about the Mets and all that. So I was really hooked. And I was doing really good until the Rockies came, right? And so then I had to become a Rockies fan. But my kids still give me a lot of hell about being a Mets fan.
I like the Rockies too. It's just their logo is just
it's goofy looking.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
It's like the Mets, especially the old one.
Yeah.
Was it Mr. What's his name?
Mr. Matt.
Yeah, Mr. Matt.
Yeah, Mr. Matt.
It's awesome.
Yep. Oh yeah. They're definitely not as creative now.
No.
So. You said quick hitters, and I just drug you all off.
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
You're up.
I was looking at Daniel. He was looking at me. And it's my turn. So, Joel, what's a favorite movie of yours?
Oh boy, the movies are hard for me because I love movies. That was another thing that I took a class one time on movie history, and part of the class was you got to go to this theater downtown Denver and see. They had movies. They've changed every day, so it was like an art house, right? So I got to see all this plethora of great movies. But I'm going to have to confess that my favorite movie is Wizard of Oz.
That's my mom's too. It's a great one. Classic.
It was a classic, and it's because of how it impacted me when I was a kid, right? Because it was I never saw it in the theater when it came out, but we watched it religiously.
Oh yeah.
When it was on the television, you waited for that day. Those kind of moments were something that were really special. So, but I have a list about 100 of them, and they're all over the place as far as I when I get a chance, and I have a huge DVD collection, which is probably stupid now that you can store them all, but I do. I'll pull my Patton movie out and watch it. I like that movie too.
No. Physical media, it's important to have.
Yep.
Yeah, they can't take that away.
They can't.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wizard of Oz just triggered this memory. Well, this non-memory I have, because my mom has told me that when I was real little, the bedtime story always had to be the Wizard of Oz. I have no memory of this. And I keep thinking I need to read this or reread it and see if it
resonates with you.
Yeah, because apparently that was just obsessive.
You were big into allegory as a child.
I must. I don't know. So Joel, what word comes to your head when you think of Chadron State College?
This is going to sound a little corny, but family. The people here are so warm. And I mean this across the campus. They genuinely want to see other people be successful, and to me, that's very hard to find in the world. And I think that Dr. Ryan has a saying where he says it's hard to live up here on the high plains, and it is. And I think that's how the people cope with that. It's just how they are friendly with each other, and they consider each other part of the bigger whole, right? Yeah. And so I think that's the real strength of our campus. It certainly is with our athletic program. I still giggle when we use that analogy about the rock, and nobody has given me the definition about what the rock is yet. But I do know what it means. Okay, and the fact that it means something to them is important, and it means something to alums, and it means something to people who weren't here, have been here for 30 years. It resonates with them, and so to me, it's things like that I think are really that's the. So, and to me, it means family, that everybody are together.
It's true. I'm just thinking of, you might be having a bad day, and you go down the sidewalk, and you run into somebody, and invariably they know you know them.
Yeah.
5-minute conversation, and you leave that. It might be innocuous, but you leave it going, it's not a bad day after all.
Yeah, things aren't as bad as ever. And it could be anywhere, right? You can see somebody that you should probably seen on campus, but it's at Walmart.
Sure.
Right? And because it's at Walmart, you have this whole different dialogue with them and stuff. And so, there's not, I don't know, there's just, there's a sense of family here that I think is special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And wonderful community setting. So one that we're certainly glad you're part of. And thanks for joining us today, Joel.
Oh, this was my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
We look forward to seeing everybody in the family at the football game. I don't know if this podcast won't be out this Saturday, but boy, we've got more football games, and volleyball games, and everything else scheduled this season. So
rodeos,
join
and
the
different
family.
things. So we got lots going on. So it'll be fun, folks. Everybody, get out.
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
My pleasure.